Yeah, give it.
Please, oh yeah, we got 1, 2 here. You guys made it right after the you. We did? You printed that? Oh. Agree or lose? 5, 4. It's easier on mine. Fine.
We open these all the time, we only get comments. So where's everybody from?
The people in California. A bunch of different states. California, Minnesota, Illinois.
Someone here? Largely Washington.
Illinois, Michigan.
Yeah, that's important.
Dude!
Apparently you have another one from a city.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as big though. Yeah. Oh, I dropped off that thing. It's so many signatures.
And who's the organizer?
That is. Thank you very much. I don't have nothing to do with the card, I just delivered it for a friend. Friend. Like, I didn't organize the card, I organized this.
That was everybody on the line. What did you guys do? You went on a tour?
Yeah. Long time fan, first time tourist. We met Ice Frogs.
Super rarely.
I had not let that secret go yet.
So what am I supposed to do? I feel like I should be...
Well, we can sing. We can sing. No. Yeah, we should sing happy day. I wrote a song. Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gavin. Happy birthday to you.
So, how many of you are actually brownies, or is that just like...
Oh, God. Oh, God. First person I enjoyed. He's not with us, though.
We brought you a brownie thing, too. Really?
What? How did you make that correlation, by the way?
Yeah, there's a... So,
You can do that.
somebody asked me if I'd... So, Lauren Faust is the creator. She's actually super cool and should make video games. So I knew her, so I started watching.
Is there going to be a Valve model phone game?
Well, we're trying to figure out how to do something.
Hi, that's Frog.
That would be Ice Frog.
Oh, damn. Didn't do flash, I'm sorry.
Where's Eric? So he's Eric Johnson, so...
Hello, Eric.
Oh.
You're going to get the Ice Frog. Little Ice Frog.
Hi, Ice Frog.
No Ice Frog.
What kind of hats do you have in CS2?
I have all of them.
You have an Nacho hat?
It's really good. Yeah. I have a band name for stuff.
Is it actually band people? Or is it that's what we talk about. Band people. What's the point of that? That was Robert all over the band.
What's the history of the war?
Yeah. Picture of the what? The war.
Well, we actually have a Brody board on 4chan called NOP
It's coming from the kind of it's sort of a board and it kind of spread to every board and kind of sections. So we made its own board.
Like they would make what we call shit posts on every board in
Just post points on every board.
like no matter the topic.
We're not here to talk about
So we gave them their own board called MOP.
No, we just gave them their own.
Can we just not talk about it? It's a negative topic.
Anyway, we are big fans, and we came here because Mike organized a first successful. We've tried to do a Gaben Exodus, quote unquote, before.
About 4 times for years. And
4 times.
Yeah, it finally came to fruition.
3-4 times.
And we're kind of
Really, yeah, you have to realize that board revered beyond you. This tour was like the Willy Wonka thing. Like the board pretty much the 90s.
Yeah, they really gave them Yeah. So what do you want to know about the Snow Cowboys 3?
So, tell us about Ricochet 2.
Can you tell us anything about the you're already all working on a new engine?
Source 2 could or could not be.
So we've been working on engine stuff for a while. So you probably just rolled out of our games.
Is it going to be more than just a story that appended the source? Like, is it an entirely new engine?
Yeah. Cool. Ricochet 2 started development.
Yeah!
Well, you talked about Ricochet 2 on some podcasts, and you talked about how people who are working on Ricochet 2 continue working on Ricochet 2. Can we talk more about Ricochet 2? No.
I think you said
Ricochet.
Why did you feel it necessary to release Left 4 Dead 2 in such a short time after Left 4 Dead 1 was
The guys, the guys who are working on it, like Tom Leonard and Steve Bond and so on, really wanted to actually, so as you all know very well, there's time and there's not time. So we've always been, like any project, there's 3 things straight. Either how long it's going to take, how many people are working on it, or whether it's something that you can constrain to, but the third one you have to relax. So we've always screwed the schedule for the other 2, and the guys who were working on Left 4 Dead 1 really wanted to do a project that would take a year. They wanted to have that as an option in case we needed to do it. So the whole focus for them was to try to do something that was reliable in terms of schedule. So, we didn't think people would freak out. We were like, yeah, we can do something on time. We'd be like, oh my God! So that's why.
Quick question, how long have you been growing out that awesome beard?
About a year, yeah.
most
Well, did you know we'll improve that you can't improve what's perfect, but...
It gets very bushy and I like that.
Secondly, with the mandatory arbitration, why you guys are really late to that game, and why did you decide to implement it so recently?
So do you guys actually care, or just...
I
No, we don't want to
So, there's this, it has to do with class action lawsuits. There are all these class action lawsuit lawyers who just pop up, and there's the problem is that it's asymmetric, so they can basically file a lawsuit against you in federal court and cost them nothing, and then the first thing they say is, okay, now you have to do discovery on every single document you've ever created in history.
And that costs money.
Were you threatened
Well,
with it?
it's a shakedown, yeah, right? So they're essentially trying to say, you could either spend, just like in the first filing, $3 million, because it takes a lot for lawyers have to read every document, blah, blah, blah. Or they'll say, why don't you just give us $5,000? So it really is a shakedown.
Okay.
So the arbitration, that's really not about users, it's really about this classic litigation that's awesome.
Okay, well,
Because if we're dicks, you guys are going to show up here, well, you'll sue us. And you could still sue us.
Yeah.
Right.
well, let's not go into that, but I understand. Okay, well, then I'm actually happy to hear that it was, you held off. That actually makes me feel better.
Yeah,
Until-
people who don't usually do the research, they think that it's just a way to take being able to file actual complaints against the company away from the customer. And I know that's not true.
Right.
But,
Right. So,
That's one of them. Oh, I didn't get one. Yeah, it's more of them.
so a lot of what we do is try to avoid other people like, we're happy if you're mad at us. We're happy if you're mad at us and you let us know because we'll do better, right? There's a relationship we have direct with customers. We don't have bankers, we don't have publishers, right? All of our decisions are ours. And, but occasionally these other places called courtrooms, especially as you go around the world, you know, the situation in Germany is different from the situation in Malaysia. And that's like, we haven't really figured out a way to avoid letting other people, you know, interfere in the relationship that we have with customers in that domain. So we'll have to start our own country.
You get an island. Call it Steamland? Or?
Yeah, but that, I mean, you guys have seen the benefits of us not being beholden to third parties, right? We make decisions where we just, you know, it's remarkable how hard it is for a lot of game developers who actually know what the right thing to do is, but they're not able to do the right thing because some product marketing guy at a publisher says, no, we have to do this, or some banker says, hey, I heard this social gaming thing.
They're always wrong.
They're always wrong.
I had an interview with John Sawyer from Obsidian, and he was saying the same thing. It's just with the Kickstarter project, with that project attorney, it's nice to not have that person that doesn't know what they're talking about, and they're looking only for the bottom line to come and like, you should do this. Like, I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter thing is great.
Kickstarter, yeah.
Today, gamers are fronting the money anyhow, right? If you think of what a publisher doing, all they're doing is holding on to gamers' money for a little while and then attaching a bunch of strings to it.
I saw that one Kickstarter you endorsed about the sword play. I think it was by a company. Yeah. Did that get funded or?
Yeah, that got funded.
Awesome. Good. That's great to hear.
Palmer Lucky.
Yeah, it looked really awesome. Yeah.
So in general, I think the more that you know, 4chan should start a venture fund, basically, and pick the games you like.
There's this legendary 4chan game called Pressure. It's about like an underwater station. I can't really explain it.
You started Kickstarter,
It's our dream game that we've been talking about for years. And
Well, it's like procedurally generated, so random disasters happen.
You guys can put money together.
They tried to make
You guys get behind it.
you're like in an underwater. Yeah.
We will give you all of it.
I was just put up a Kickstarter. After you have the money, then pick a team to do it, right? Because eventually the game people will show up, right? I mean, you should just have
Gamers can trust your guys' opinion on if it's going to be good,
yeah.
more so than...
We don't trust our opinion.
Well, I haven't sat in a publisher meeting. It's pretty grim. So that's like one of the things I think the whole industry will benefit from is the gamers having more control over where the money is going in terms of funding projects. There'll still be a bunch of projects that fail, but at least there'll be more interesting failures in the, you know, you won't just get the same damn game over and over and over.
Is that kind of why you started my project?
Which project?
Is that kind of why you started on that Greenlight project?
Greenlight was trying to do that. I don't think we did a super good job. We have a bunch of work to do. But the idea of, first of all, there's way too much between a game developer and getting something on Steam. And it's really because we've been kind of stupid about how the amount of work that we have to do. So, I feel like just to process everybody applying on Steam is like 20 or 30 people's work. We need to make that process a lot more efficient. So Greenlight was more about, well, why don't you guys pick which ones we should do turn the crank on, as opposed to let's just figure out how to make turning the crank easy so that anybody can put it up. So Greenlight's better than nothing, but it's still not really where we need to be. Yep.
Have you guys considered creating a sub-platform on Steam that would allow developers to, while they're in the development stage of their game, allow the community to take part in the actual game development itself? Would Valve ever do that? Similar to Kickstarter? Well, not really. They're just donating money in that, but this would actually be, you've got...
Workshop.
Yeah, well, workshop, but while the game is being developed.
So kind of like that Mega Man Legend 3 thing?
Assets, exactly.
Better than like
That are
third by game.
But everybody's headed that way, right? I mean,
compensated for it.
well, the way I think, the direction that we're headed in right now, not just Valve, but everybody is towards, so one thing you guys may not know is that the community generates about 10 times as much content for TF2 as Valve does, right? And I think that's even though that's all in a pretty primitive stage still, but my expectation is that all games will basically be about creating a framework where the community participates and builds on top of it. And I think that means it'll end up going in surprising directions, but I think everybody is going to be happier with the results.
I just can't help but wonder what would be like if Valve was to announce like a game concept and then state that they wanted the community to contribute stuff while the game was being developed, and how fast it would actually, how much it would increase the amount of time or decrease the amount of time it takes to develop the game itself.
Where we're headed.
Kind of like a beta.
You're absolutely saying the same things you're saying internally.
Is there a fear then, with like too many cooks in the kitchen then, of just all these random people from all over just throwing ideas, like, okay, well, this is all over the place and these are a lot of cool ideas, but how do you even make one thing from them?
So that's one of the issues, and you can think of it a couple of different ways. One way to think of it is a content discovery problem. So 4chan has this problem, right? There's a billion piles of crap for everything that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you guys are wrestling with the problem the same way as we are. It's like, how do I find on 4chan or in this user-generated content, MMO-ish thing, how do I find the stuff that's right for me? So I think that's a hot topic right now, both as a design problem and as a technology problem. I mean, what's the current method on 4chan?
There's a catalog. I mean, nothing sticks around. It's gone. The second fast-moving board, and I mean, you have something that was created.
Well, some of the boards are so far gone.
I don't know, like, if you have a kind of method between, if you're, like, always developing, or if you guys are kind of, like, downtime between projects, but, like, in terms of, like, precise, like, content creation for, like, artists and for, like, sound, like, what do they do if there's downtime? Like, you have to create architecture around stuff, so what are they doing in that spare time?
So everybody, I mean, you saw our desks, right? You see that they're on wheels, so people just, nobody tells them what to do. Everybody just figures out what to do.
So I think it's wear multiple hats a lot of the time.
We've wear many hats. Always got more work to do than we can get done. And everybody here tends to be able to do a bunch of different things. So, like Jeff Unai. Jeff worked on Avatar. He inherited the facial animation system from Bay as Peter Jackson's production company. But he also turns out he successfully made all of the Dota 2 videos of the international tournament. You know, so almost everybody does multiple things. Ken Birdwell, who's been here since the beginning, did the skeletal animation system, but he also has a BFA, right? So he does art. So pretty much everybody here can do multiple things. A lot of people here are musicians. Almost everybody can, except for me, can draw. So people get to pick what they think is going to be most valuable. And a lot of things, I mean, the f-stop, which was sort of Josh and David's kind of take on what they thought would be an interesting direction for Portal 2, was something that they did when they finished up work. We're working on Left 4 Dead, right?
Just doing some stuff.
No, but what was Just doing before they did that stuff? Anyhow, so people will just pick what they think is interesting. Because one of the things that may not be obvious from the outside is everybody here sort of feels like you have kind of a limited amount of time, right? So you look at somebody like Michael Abrash. He worked on the original version of NT, Windows NT, and then he worked with Carmack. He was the other programmer on Quake, right? But he just went and worked on Laravel for like 6 years, and it was like he set fire to 6 years of his life. You know, he could have been doing Quake, or he could have been doing Windows NT, and instead he worked on a project that was killed for sort of no good reason. So everybody has this kind of sense of urgency that we only get so many shots at building stuff that's interesting. Nobody really wants to waste their time. But, and that really keeps everybody motivated. It's really fun to ship. It's really fun to get these games out the door and to do stuff that you guys like.
So what do you do for the seasonal events for some of the games, like Team Fortress 2? Do you guys have like a competition kind of going of what happens inside that, or?
You mean how do we design them?
Yeah.
Well, they just got through doing firefighting.
Did you guys expect a 6-second kill from that fudge stacking?
No. Well, we expected anything to happen. Well, the good community is pretty good at figuring out what will work. But the groups are, they, just like all of the groups that build those are kind of people inside of the team that decided they wanted to work on that stuff. So, Yule and, who doesn't know who Yule is, right? Yule, the original Dota guy, the pre-Iceberg guy. Him and Brandon Reinberg started with this recent and as people wanted to help out on it. We expected anything to happen now.
Is there a season plan?
Yeah, we'll do something. One of the things, so it's interesting, you guys know when people are lying to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Todd Howard.
You can do anything in this game.
I will fall through 1,000 questions.
You can climb that.
Peter.
And it's one of those things that the internet is way smarter than anybody realizes. So it's really a bad idea. There are a couple things. One, don't ever lie to the internet. The internet never forgets, and the internet is incredibly fucking fast. We didn't know it was too. I mean, what I'm saying is like, we knew. We tried to predict. We could always say everything went faster than we expect, and we're still always surprised. So my big hope is I get kidnapped one day, right? Somebody says, hey, let's kidnap this guy because he's supposed to have a bunch of money. Because now's the time 4chan is going to get that. The over and under on that is like 3 hours.
If 4chan were to get you,
I would just roll.
I don't think it would be about money. I personally don't think it would be about money.
The 4chan has to kidnap me.
No, they spend so much time fighting over each other.
Quick question regarding TI3. Do you have any news on that? Because it's been pretty under wraps so far.
I don't think we're trying to be under wraps. No, we're going to do it for sure.
Location?
We don't know.
Please?
Yes.
All right.
I want to see China and EJ wants to do Seattle. Our biggest, we'd like to take it around the world, but a big part, we think that made it kind of fun this time around is how many people from Valve. There's over half the company. It's like one of the most fun things we get to do each year. Yeah. It's like building and shipping a game in a week, which is just super exciting for us. So if it's overseas, I could go anyhow. But a whole bunch of other people go, and we had a blast.
If it's in China, I'll be there for sure. So.
How many people did any of you guys go to International? Wasn't it?
This is the best experience of my life. Yeah.
The horn was Red Tech, by the way. The real horn that he started in.
So, yeah.
The Vuvuzela?
Yeah, they blew an actual horn in the stadium.
We went into that, again, not knowing what was going to happen. Like, there was people 10 minutes before the event started worried that no one was going to show up. So we kind of know how to do that now, and so next year should be pretty cool.
Well, first of all, I thank you for moving that record that somebody did by glitching Neurotron in 0.009 seconds. That was just safe there. I was just let people actually do it. But I have a question that probably hasn't been asked in a long time. But this is a question that comes from people who put complaints about Valve. It's not an ignorant question or anything like that. People say that, you said that piracy is a non-issue a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Is that still hold true?
Yeah.
Well, basically what I want to ask is, what do you think of people promoting DRM-free services where the game is not like bound to an account or anything like that, where you actually own the game and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, you actually asked a couple different questions. I mean, I I don't have a problem with DRM. I think actually we're going to head that way anyhow. The problem is you're going to end up with a lot of assets inside of the games. Here's the bigger problem, right? Do we worry about piracy? No. What we worry about are people stealing accounts. That's like a million times bigger of a problem for us.
That's our biggest problem is foremost.
Right. So the question becomes, as you have more and more value in your accounts, right? You'll eventually have $20,000, $30,000 worth of stuff in your account, because all the time you're playing, you're going to be essentially generating value. You're going to be collecting hats, you're going to be crafting stuff, you're going to be trading with stupid people on. And you want to not. That's way bigger concern.
Many guys are coming.
Say the same thing in reverse.
I'll just go to that one.
I have a follow-up question to that. Do you think that, this is actually a two-part question. One, do you think other game companies are afraid to go that route because they're publicly traded and people don't understand piracy, or anything like that? And does the same thing follow for your horizontal architecture? You don't see that in many other places in power.
So, I don't know, like in the 90s when we were first starting the company, we tended to treat some of the stuff we did as sort of like, oh, this is kind of cool, so maybe it's kind of a trade secret. And then after a while, we were like, oh, this is nobody ever does what we say we're doing anyhow. Or it takes them incredibly long to. So, when we first started talking about digital distribution, it seems, which is a simple thing, right? You cannot be a 4chan user and have somebody say digital distribution. That's crazy talk, right? It just seems super obvious. But we were saying it and then figured, well, somebody else will just steal this idea. And we've been saying forever that it's a really good idea to, not have the funding for your projects interfere with your game decisions, right? But how many companies really are in that, have put themselves into that situation? So, the way that we organize our company makes a huge amount of sense to us. And I think it'll be a long time before you see other companies that are similarly organized. The other thing is if they just try to copy what they think we're doing, they'll end up making mistakes.
Origin.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
The consequences and trade-offs to the decisions you make. So when somebody, they need to understand why they're doing something in order to make the right trade-offs.
It's a very interconnected system.
Right. Sure. Like we do stuff, like we don't have we try not to have sick time or vacation time, but we sort of have to because of Washington state law. But we say to people, it's like, look, you shouldn't be at work, don't be at work. And we're far more likely to send somebody home than we are to ask somebody, well, actually we never ask anybody where they are. But we'll tell people to go home.
What company in the family actually wants to people at work?
Right. Yeah. That's also really dependent on the people you hire, right? I can't think of anybody here who'd say, woohoo, I'm going to just go away for 4 months. Usually, you would do it. It's way more likely that you're walking around at 2 o'clock in the morning and you say, no,
GTF.
There are smart companies and there are dumb companies, and dumb companies will fall off, and smart companies will.
Would you consider EA and Activision smart companies? Their EA stock, right now, is not doing too hot.
Or terrible companies that we all hate.
Their DLC model, it's kind of the most hated companies on 4chan, whereas Valve is probably the least hated. Or most was. 4chan, yeah.
You and CD Projekt
Yeah, CD Projekt and Valve are probably...
So what should we be paying attention to that we're not, right? I mean, you guys, this is your opportunity.
Have you seen that Mona Lisa picture?
No,
but it shows it's the DLC model through time. It shows in 1990 shows an actual picture of Mona Lisa. And then it shows 1997 or something, it shows the Mona Lisa and then a couple other paintings, and it says these are expansions with pictures. And then it shows Mona Lisa with a piece taken out So it's a complete painting, and then this is $30. Then it shows in the future just all these pieces, and it's never actually
And this, you get half the game, and the rest is $19.99. And the DLC is free.
I mean, a lot of times if you guys see, what you guys see though are decisions, really sort of downstream of decisions that are like 2 to 4 years old when you see how it actually impacts stuff.
I also would say that you guys are a lot more long-term thinkers around games than most people own them. It's kind of weird to say, but
So
we're never
4chan.
projecting all the way out, like where this is headed.
That's what we do, unfortunately.
We always think video games
I mean, we predicted the fall of what we refer to as Torcanic from the get-go.
The older Republic MMO. We predicted it would fall and
We
fail
predicted that it
from
would
day
be
one.
free to play within 6 months.
The joke is that the only person that didn't think that was going to go to free-to-play was Kotaku, because like, this will never go to free-to-play. Might go free-to-play. Is now free-to-play. There's a picture of it, just their headline.
Only 4chan predicted that.
Well, the doctors, they do shock it, they do shock.
No, well, right, of
Do
course.
you guys have any sort of prediction market on 4chan? You guys know what
It's
prediction
getting
market
worse. Yeah, there's not really conceivable.
You guys might try to figure out how to set up predict. I mean, like, what's the most valuable currency on 4chan?
Trips.
If you can create a prediction market, I think you'd be surprised at, one, you'd be incredibly accurate, and first of all, you'd be blown off, but then you'd find out, holy shit, we really are pretty accurate at predicting stuff. So there are a couple of characteristics of prediction markets that are important, and one is you actually have to have skin in the game. In other words, you can't just like have an opinion. There has to be a negative consequence to an incorrect guess. It's not just a poll. It's not a poll. It's I actually will lose something I care about if I guess wrong. Pretty quick, everybody right now is obsessed with Metacritic scores, right? Like you go in and, in people's careers go up and down based on...
I remember for us, Fallout, for the company, they actually based their pay on the they get a huge pay raise if they got a certain Metacritic score, and they're 1 point off on Metacritic. It was like they had to go like an 85 or something, and they got an 84, so they didn't get the extra pay.
Somebody just
That game is better than...
So one dickhead reviewer kind of, threw the entire thing off.
And then the question becomes, did the Bethesda at that reviewer or a reviewer to drop that so that they wouldn't have to pay Obsidian?
I just think they seem to pay off the Metacritic score.
You may have that in the deal, but then you just pay them anyway.
That's what you should do.
Yeah, but not everybody has a big heart. I mean, like, this...
It's like, it's made a good game, you want to do it again, right?
Yeah.
So the prediction market thing, actually, if Metacritic, nobody at Metacritic called up a bunch of game companies and said you should base payment decisions. It just turned out that it was a better tool than anything anybody in the game industry had created for evaluating the quality of what they did. And if you guys really should have stuff like, will this thing go free to play, or will this, will these guys cancel this project? Or even prediction markets on Kickstarter, since that would be an interesting thing to do.
Actually, one thing that I and a bunch of guys online, we were looking at Star Citizen, which just got financed. What we were thinking is that's a game that should be on Steam. It's been kickstarted up to like 3 Star Citizen.
Who's the...
Oh yeah. The guy who did Wing Commander. He's funding it with all his money. And yeah, he got like 3.7 million, and it's so good. Like, it's everything I want a PC exclusive to have, along with like an MMO side and a single player side.
What games are everybody playing right now?
Dota 2.
We have...
Dark Souls is kind of the game of the year.
I play Dark Souls, there's a very strong Dark Souls contingent.
I think V actually started the petition for that.
On the Dota team, he bought Demon Souls for everyone on the whole team to play.
He bought 300-something copies of Demon Souls?
Not just on the Dota 2 team.
Oh, just on the Dota 2?
Yeah. Seems like you have to play Demon Souls. How many people are on the Dota team? I don't know the number.
There's like 90 ice frogs, right?
Possible team probably. 44.
Well, I thought Office was like 3 axes in it, and I'm like, that's not true.
I had a question. I asked because I cannot remember.
how often and do you advertise on gaming websites like Rock Paper Shotgun, Kotaku? Do you advertise your game?
Not really.
No, I'm asking because I can't remember what the.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We've done some in the past, but like TV ads are actually kind of worthless. Print ads are kind of worthless. I mean, you're much better to engage your community directly than to try to go through an intermediary.
Yeah, like stuff like this makes me want to play Dota more.
Have you found that with the internet now, I mean, maybe back years ago before the internet was as big and accessible as it is, that you don't have to do that because people are going to find you if you are what they want? You don't have to go and spread your news all around?
Right, and you know, the easiest way to get people to play more of your game is to ship more content, right? You know, it's like free weekends. It's probably free.
Yeah.
It's probably.
I had drugs.
You know, like
When we had the internet, and all the other kids, all pro players came up here.
Yeah.
And they played your off.
They played the BCG and everything.
Yeah.
BCG was doing what you guys are doing, everyone that walked through.
Will Steam ever get rid of Windows Live, or games to Windows Live, and like the Uplay for Ubisoft? Because we have to like sign up on their server and account.
Because, you know, it's really
like, we only need Steam.
I lost my Xbox Live account on 7 years ago.
Later, Ice Frog.
So it's sort of a balancing act. So we think a lot of the things are really overhelpful. And we tell them that they probably shouldn't do it. But it's their game, right? We wouldn't want somebody telling us what to do. In fact, we kind of hate it when people tell us what to do. So it's kind of this tough thing. So we try to make sure that the customer knows what they're getting. But we also don't want to become, you know, the bossy dictator that tells everybody, you know, you have to do things our way.
Doing things that customers don't know are happening, that's something that's
Right. I mean, at some point, undoubtedly we'll turn evil, and you guys will put us down. But we'll try to avoid doing too much damage between now and then. Right. I mean, you know, another thing we try to avoid, a bunch of people have asked us, they said, hey, why don't we do an exclusive, and you know, we won't ship on any of the other services, how much will you give us for being exclusive? And we said, look, no. It's like, the internet, it's actually bad for you. It's bad for you, it's bad for us in the long run. You know, we want lots of people to be innovating on these services. We'll benefit if somebody has some great ideas. So we're really, it's weird, you know,
If you take a look at it.
we're all in this together in terms of, we'll get benefits from other people doing smart, successful things, right? Dark Souls comes out and everybody gets excited about playing the game. Somebody puts out a shitty game or fucks up DRM and everybody like, well, I guess I'll go watch YouTube instead of playing games.
I think Dark Souls moves on to Steam, something kind of, you know, Japan, they don't really ship out a lot.
Yeah.
So I think now that they've seen that it can be successful on Steam, it's gonna, I think I'd like to see more Japanese stuff.
We have people go over there pretty often, and I think we're sort of turning the bend with them. It's kind of hard to be a Japanese developer right now. It's weird how depressed you can go there and you're like, how have you guys all decided that you're depressed because you're Japanese developers as opposed to being the developer of this specific game? So
Is there a follow-up to Dark Souls being built?
Yeah,
I mean, they said they're making.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. It's really still everybody enjoys it for the most part. Well, not everybody.
Has Valve ever considered getting a MMO?
well, I mean, it has hats. I think that there are a bunch of ideas in MMOs that sort of all games kind of can benefit from picking up. I think we're kind of really in this transition from single player to multiplayer to MMOs to free to play. And so it's sort of a question of, do you target, the MMO model, or do you try to target the thing that's coming next? And I think we're trying to focus more on some ideas about what the next stuff looks like. We well play crazy.
I have a question.
It undervalues your most valuable, I would say undervalues your most valuable creators and experience. The wrong thing.
Speaking of MMOs, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I was wondering. So I've been on Steam since like 2002, and like supposedly back then everybody's like, oh, game must have the Steam ID number 1. Is it true?
But then you would realize that Alfred Reynolds is right.
You have it?
Wow. You have Steam ID 1.
Yes, I have Steam ID 1.
Wow.
Do you have multiple Steam accounts?
Do I?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of them has like a drawing of you just standing there with an eye patch on like Big Boss, and the other one has like a blue cube in it. I don't know what it's from. No, that's not it.
The problem is that when I play, so there's this, everybody gets super weird when they think they're playing with me. It takes the fun out of, like, sometimes I just want to kick somebody's ass and not have them, or, just lose because they're better than me, as opposed to having some sort of weird.
How wow.
I saw a video that I think that some people are saying it's fake, but you were on like a TF2 trade server, like looking for black paint. Why would you need to trade? Like you can just press a button and get all the.
That wasn't
It sounded just like
Speaking of TF2 items, is Robin Walker here at least, or?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear.
Is Robin Walker here?
Yeah, Robin's wrong.
Oh.
He's probably playing Dota right now.
He was the redhead in the room playing Dota, huh?
Redhead?
Hey, I thought he was
Well, I'm
redhead.
trying to decide if I want Robin to be a redhead.
I thought he was redheaded.
No, Robin doesn't have a beard. Just kind of hair. Did he have a beard?
No.
Must be some infiltrator.
Ice Frog?
Would you guys try to like developer group play sessions every now and then? Like make an announcement that, oh, we're going to play TF2 and you guys can come play with us.
We've done that from time to time.
Have you?
Yeah.
How about for Dota?
Well, the problem with Dota is except for Ice Frog. Really good, but no, we can do Ice Frog, you, Adrian, and that's a good thing.
You're narrowing the list down. We're
Dota brings out a
keeping
lot
it in
of-
mind. Who's not? We'll figure it out.
I can't play it on make noise like talking about it, I get too frustrated. I can't do it.
You guys should have a tournament, and then whoever wins the tournament.
We used to have like Reddit versus 4chan tournaments. We did it for like the Tribes game.
Yeah, 4chan gets 20 million unique visitors a day, so we're very, like,
Hit and miss.
we'd never we'd never be able to get this thing together. Like, we've tried 5 times, like, the board has tried 5 times to come here to Valve to meet you, and then this is like the first one that,
Even last night there's a thread and everyone was saying,
everything.
they're just saying we'll believe it when we see it. We're not going to happen.
I'm staying at the Hyatt Regency, and some people are staying at the Motel 6 in Kirkland, and some people are staying at the rest, and the rest of them.
I have one more question actually. Regarding like the new phenomena that is streaming, are you guys ever going to have like stream integration built into the client?
So streaming is interesting. We had to think really hard about it. The problem with a lot of what the streaming does, first of all, it's a Twitch.
Are you talking about Twitch TV or?
Yeah, like Twitch or Justin or Owen.
Doesn't LOL do it?
LOL and Han both have streaming built into their game, but I mean into the like into the Steam client or something.
That's a fine thing to do. It's just a question of time. So I was going off in this completely different direction, where I was going to try and box. I was answering the wrong question.
What do you think about cloud gaming?
That's the thing I was Here we go! It puts latency and competition in the wrong place. It only works economically if you ignore the real network costs. And if you actually want to get the benefits of it, there are better ways to doing it. So like, I think Tim Sweeney is on a way better track than some of the cloud gaming people in terms of thinking about how you can do it. So, also there's stuff that's coming that's going to make the latency problem a lot worse. So a simple example of that is gaze tracking. And using the fact that you know where somebody's eyes are pointing, but that occurs at very low latencies, tens of milliseconds, not hundreds. So I understand why it's kind of cool if you want to ignore the last 50 years of computer science, but it's the wrong way. It's why AT&T thought they'd beat the internet, and we all know how that worked out. But the internet is a much better model. Smart clients, dumb, simple interconnects.
I'd like to give some non-Half-Life rumors. There was some they call it leaked controller from, they say, 2009. It had swappable components in it.
Well, that was probably a development program. I don't know the picture you're referring to, but we've been working. Do you guys know Jerry Ellsworth? You can go look at her videos on YouTube, but she was like the first hardware person we hired. And we're working on controller designs. Well, I can't play.
I'd like to make a comment on that. I think that's a great idea, but from the concept, I'm really wanting to pick up the buttons and put them in different places. Because the big debate with controllers is should the buttons go on top and the sticks on the bottom, or vice versa, or should the sticks be asymmetric and buttons be asymmetric? That way, if you had a controller like that, it would be everybody's flavors of the controllers. Also, 2 shoulder buttons.
So we have 3 controllers that we're starting to do user testing on now. So we'll try them out and see what people like. The reason we're doing controllers is that we didn't think there was enough interesting innovation going on, and there are a bunch of reasons for why we think that's happening. So even though we've never really thought of ourselves as that, we're now trying to tackle the problems of designing controllers and games at the same time. And we're also trying to figure out how, the Steam experience can extend into living rooms, right? Big picture is stuff on that. Did the Linux beta go out there? So we're doing the Linux beta either today or tomorrow. Yeah. But the whole point of saying, that the things that we all value about PC gaming, that consoles should not be the only answer to that. So how do we make living room friendly PCs, or how do we make your computer in the den work for you when you're living room as well, stuff like that.
A second rumor. There were some pictures floating around just like a month ago of apparently with Valve concept art. It's a space game. And a lot of people are thinking about
Stars of what?
Stars of Barathrum.
I don't know what Barathrum is like the other one.
Yeah, I know. It's like something to do with Spirit Breakers backstory, but that's what people were calling it. Could you talk more about that? Or
not doing anything.
You're not doing anything?
We had an internal project that Convertible was setting up called Stars of Blood, a Space Pirates game, and that never saw the light of day. That's the only Stars of has been doing.
All right.
Have you checked out that Black Mesa Source at all, the mod?
I actually haven't played it.
You haven't played it, have you?
Things I have to do.
What are you playing currently? How many hours do you have on it?
I don't know, over 12 or 13 hours.
Oh.
I used to obsess with it.
Abby.
How many wins do you have then?
None of your business. No question. That's why I'm separate. So separate from the
Oh, so you have all the cats to do.
I like, it actually sort of depends on where I am and learning how to play the game better. Just, you'll sort of get this insight into some approach, and then you'll suddenly understand why some of the heroes are doing games. And I always look at this game.
Is it true that Ice Frog forced you to start ranting?
You told me to, yeah.
Sure.
What's your stand?
random is sort of like what you, the problem that people have is they'll pick one hero and they'll get stuck on it, and then they won't actually learn what all the other heroes do. So random just forces you to learn all the different roles and understand different aspects of the game. Right. Otherwise, you'll just get in a rut and you'll pop out pretty quickly in terms of how it works.
So with Linux, you mentioned that the base rolling out for Steam, so that's going to be quite big. With NVIDIA's control, like I don't know if that would have been 50-50 comparison to AMD, but with their control of the video card market and their lack of support for Linux, do you think?
Oh, that's not true.
Oh, that's
so there's a guy here at NVIDIA who's just a raging Linux guy, and they've been doing great stuff on Linux. So, all the hardware guys are actually sort of pumped to have some more games. So there's an open source Linux driver team at Intel. There's AMD/ATI and NVIDIA. They park themselves upstairs with the Linux guys a week on it. So, but it's actually faster. Left 4 Dead 2 and TF2 are both faster on Linux now than they are on Windows. Last question.
Okay.
It'll be a good question. Everybody else will hate you if it's a stupid question.
Well, then they can beat me up by. How people think that you change the way you say your name in the commentary videos because you're not comfortable with being called Gaben. Did you say change to GAB?
Oh, I was just trolling. That was just a troll.
Well, they still made songs with it. Just like they do on
Gabe, I had asked the people unfortunately they didn't get to come. They wanted us to ask you if there's any possibility of doing a group photo. Not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay. They want us to ask you in
It's wrong.
who has the camera?
I got
You can upload it to
I got a wide angle.
Oh God, everyone can start arguing here.
What's the resolution of yours?
Okay. So,
Where do you?
yeah.
Or chance for that.
Got a wide angle lens.
Yeah, but it's only can't.
Okay, he's got a wide angle lens when he's